Hi, this is Dr. Anthony Mosley from Visual Productions by Anthony Mosley. And I have a set of tips that I believe will help your organization keep track of your visual content. Now, we've probably all been in a situation where we needed an image that was taken 2, 3, maybe even 4 years ago, and it can be frustrating to get our hands on that image quickly and in the time frame in which we need it. That could be an event that the mayor, for example, attended at your organization's location, or the time that Santa Claus was passing out presents to kids, also at your location, or maybe events that you do around town. So, how do we find a way to bring all of that visual content and put it in a place that we can quickly get to it when we need it? The 3 tips that I have for you are very simple. First, gather all of the images from the past. Secondly, organize those images. And then finally, find a place to store them. So let's take a look at the first step, which is simply to gather all of the images of your organization. Recently, I went through all my pantries and pulled out jars, cans, dry goods, all types of stuff that I needed to help make sense of my culinary world. It was kind of a mess, and I couldn't put my finger on where that canister of baking powder was or whether I had red wine vinegar. So I took all of those products, put them on my living room floor, and that enabled me to see the stuff that I had available for cooking. And so in a similar way, that's what you want to do with your images. I'll put up a screen that shows all the places, well, not all, there could be more, the many places that your organization could have photos. And I won't belabor this, but you can probably think of other places that you've got photos from your organization. The main point is collect all of those. Well, once you collect them, what do you do with them? I recommend that you get one of these. It's an external hard drive. This one is a Western Digital hard drive that's probably 2 or 3 terabytes large. And you could buy it for somewhere around $100. And if you don't have a lot of video, then this is probably going to be able to meet your needs and you'll be able to fit everything onto here. If you're like me and you're an active photographer, you've got a whole library of these hard drives because we tend to take a lot of pictures. But one of those should be fine. So gather all of those images, collect them, and just dump them into a single folder right here on the hard drive. Don't even try to organize it. Don't try to relabel anything. So just one big folder of all the images that you can possibly gather. So that's the first step. The second step is now to make sense of all of that stuff. And I'm going to recommend that you use a program called Adobe Lightroom. Now, it may not necessarily be the best. I kind of think it is, but I've been using it since 2008. And it is a workhorse when it comes to organizing a ton of images. So what I recommend, and there's so many different ways to slice and dice this, I'm going to keep it really simple for you. Open up, and by the way, I can't give you detailed instructions on how to do everything in Adobe Lightroom. There are multiple tutorials available on YouTube and lynda.com, but I'll at least give you the big picture. What you want to do is open up a catalog. And a catalog, imagine it as being just a giant pantry area in a kitchen. So all that stuff that I put on the kitchen floor in terms of my jars and cans, I'm going to put those into a giant pantry that's just one big storage space. And that's what a Lightroom catalog is going to do for us. We'll further organize things from there. But the main goal is to get the images, first of all, onto here, and then secondly, into an Adobe Lightroom catalog. Now, the cool thing about this, in terms of just dumping all of those images, Adobe Lightroom can handle tens of thousands of images. And I've had up to 30,000 images in a single catalog, so it's not a problem for it. Generally, what I do is every time I have an event, or sometimes by month, I create a new catalog, but we're not going to mess with that right now. We're just trying to get all of our images from the past manageable. So one Adobe Lightroom catalog that has all of the images that your organization can get their hands on. You dump it in there. Now, the cool thing about Adobe Lightroom is that you now can go into those images and select what's called the library view. It's where you get to actually kind of preview everything that's there. And if you go up to the very top of the screen, there is a set of filters. And one of those filters is called metadata. When you click on metadata, one of the things you can do is organize or look at all of the images by date, by the time they were taken. So for example, we could click on, let's say, 2014, and it will select all of the images that have been encoded with that date, 2014. And that's all encoded in what's called EXIF data. And that data just accompanies each photo, or at least should accompany most photos. So once we've collected all the images or selected all the images for 2014, we can then create what's called a collection within Adobe Lightroom. And in that collection, we can label it 2014 photos or 2014. It now contains all of the 2014 photos. So that's convenient. You could do the same thing for 2015, 16, 17, etc. But let's go back to 2014. Once we have all those selected within a catalog, a collection, knew I was going to get those confused. Once you have those displayed within a 2014 collection, you'll note that you perhaps have up to hundreds of photos that are all related because they were taken at a specific event. So the next thing that I would do is go through and select just those photos that relate to a specific event and create another collection. Now, it's not necessarily going to be inside 2014. It's just going to appear in the collections. There's probably ways to make sub-collections and all that, but you don't have to necessarily get that fancy with it. So on Sunday, for example, I took 1,500 pictures of the Fort Worth Marathon. So that would be something if I went to 2019, years from now, if I hadn't actually been doing this up to date, I could select number 1 all the way down to 1536 and then create a collection that just simply said Fort Worth Marathon. Okay, so now that we've got our images stored on here and then imported into Adobe Lightroom and then further divided into collections using the metadata filter that's in the library view of Lightroom, you can take the next step, which is to rename the photos. Now, here's something that I've used very consistently over the years, and this is just wonderful. It's probably one of the biggest tips that I can give, and that is renaming your photos by date. So what I do is I start with the year, the month, and the day. And I do that not only with photos, but scanned documents and sound clips, video clips. So I would have, for example, when I took the Fort Worth Marathon pictures this past weekend, 2019, 11 for the month, 10 for the day, and then I have a description, which in this case is Fort Worth Marathon. So the cool thing about that is, years down the road, if I am looking for those photos and I knew it took place on November 10th of 2019, I can simply type in 2019, 11, 10, and those images are going to pop right up. That is a wonderful lifesaver. So even if you didn't take another step and organize photos further, you will have done yourself a huge service by being able to find your photos by that organization. So what I would do is rename my photos inside of collections. So the time that Santa was at your location, for example, 2017, 5/17. All right, why is he there in May? Whatever. Santa's a visit during May. And then Lightroom will order that from, you can tell it to do it from like photo number 1 to 37 or however many are in that collection. So just go through all of your collections and rename them by date, followed by a very brief description. So that is a huge, huge help. But you can help yourself even further by adding descriptive tags to your photo. And again, there are all types of helps online for how to do this, but real simply, if I have 1,500 pictures for the Fort Worth Marathon, I can go to picture number 1 within that Lightroom collection. And there's a little box that enables me to enter tags. So I can put descriptive tags that will be searchable on my computer and also searchable online. So if I end up exporting the photo and uploading it to Flickr, for example, all the tags that I enter into it or connect it with that photo will also appear within the Flickr interface. So when people search for that, it'll come up. So I would enter tags such as Fort Worth, Tarrant County, Fort Worth Marathon, Panther Island Pavilion, which is where the event took place, Trinity River. Any tag that I think might be helpful for me to find those images. So you do that on the first photo, and then you select all the other photos in the collection, and then hit Sync Metadata. And what it will do is it'll take those tags and drag it across all of the other photos. Now from there, if I have 300 or 400 photos in a collection, I can go through and add specific tags to specific ones. So for example, if the mayor appeared in 15 of the photos, I can go put a tag for the mayor in those 15 photos. Now, that takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit labor intensive. But the cool thing is, years down the road, when you want to find those photos that show the mayor's interaction with your organization, you're going to be able to put your hands on all of those photos quickly. I mean, just within a minute of being able to access your data. So that's how to organize it. It's just really, really, really simple at a very basic level. Once you've organized it, what do? Well, all of those photos are still in Lightroom, but what you're going to do is export the whole bunch of them onto, I suggest, another hard drive, or it could be the same hard drive if you have enough space. So at this point, you're not worried about folders. You're just trying to export all of your photos from Lightroom onto another location. And what's going to happen is, if you were to put all those photos into one big folder, you're going to find that they are organized in hierarchy from the oldest all the way down to the most recent, which is really cool. So all of the 2014 photos are going to hang together in a 2014 area, and then all of the specific events are going to be clustered together. So at this point, you could create a 2014, 15, 16, 17 folder and just drag all of those relevant images once you've exported out of Lightroom into those folders. Then you can go into 2014 and take all of this event and create a new folder with just those images in it. And do that really for all the major events. Now you're probably going to have some images that are left over, and you can use another category such as Other, 2014 Other, just miscellaneous things. But again, when you open that up, if you've done your work in Lightroom, all of those other photos are going to be organized from January down to December, and you'll be able to see descriptions of what those are. So once you've got all the photos exported, you've got this wonderful working library that anybody can access, and can access it without having a software program such as Adobe Lightroom. So now what do you do with it? I recommend that you store it somewhere at your location on a hard drive that's clearly marked and accessible to whoever needs that information. The second thing is you might upload it online. You might upload specific galleries to SmugMug or to Flickr, maybe even to Dropbox. There are a lot of options that are out there, many of which, of course, you need to pay in order to maintain and have that hosting. And if you don't pay, sometimes they'll just ditch all of your images. So just be careful about that. So that's it in a nutshell. Gather the images, just collect them, put them on a hard drive, organize them in Lightroom. Once you put them in Lightroom, you can divide them into collections based on metadata. You can rename them, you can tag them with specific descriptors, and then export them so that you can store them in a place where anybody who needs them in your organization can access them. Hopefully that was helpful to you. If that seemed daunting and you're here in the DFW area, I could help you with all 3 steps of that process. And just contact me here at Visual Productions by Anthony Mosley. And my goal is to make you and your organization the picture of success.